We are here for our discussion on protecting wildlife. And so at the 4 minutes after the hour, we're going to spend the next 30 minutes with some really amazing people. And I'll get straight to them. And I'll introduce them to you right now on the topic of protecting wildlife. First off, we have Kees Kruythoff, Chairman and CEO of Live Kindly Collective. And how fantastic is that of a name? And he'll tell us what he does and what his organization does. Good to see you, Kees. Marina Ponti is a director of SDG Action Campaign. There's a lot to be done there in this great week and 2 weeks in front of us, right, Marina?
Yes.
As we get to kick off the discussion today as we look at UNGA beginning as well. Love to say UNGA, right? It just sounds nice. Yeah. Fabien Cousteau, an aquanaut, oceanographic explorer, environmental advocate, founder of the Fabien Cousteau Ocean Learning Center and Proteus Ocean Group. Great to see you, Fabien. And Catie Munnings, Andretti United Extreme e-driver. And yes, Catie will be explaining shortly what that means, but you'll have to stick around to find out. Anything with Andretti in front is always fun. Kees, I have lots of questions for you, but first, as well as Catie and Fabien, but I'm going to begin with Marina. Marina, I was just talking about UNGA. We're talking about protecting wildlife. Talk about the significance of specific, and we'll mention 3 of the SDGs, 13, 14, and 15, and the idea of reducing the likelihood of, and we're here to talk about peace, reducing the likelihood of conflict.
Thank you, Richard. So the first thing that comes to mind is the call of the UN Secretary General. You mentioned UNGA. He said we urgently need to make peace with nature. The science is clear and simple. If we keep living and consuming the same way and don't act on climate urgently and ambitiously, we will no longer have a livable planet. The window of opportunity is about to slam shut. Also, COVID taught us that all issues are interconnected, precisely as the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. And only integrated solution can bring long-term impact. So we saw with the pandemic how health impacted mobility, the economy, gender violence, and jobs, and so on. And for the same reason, there cannot be peace without climate justice. Let me just give you 2 small examples. Climate change through events such as floods or drought or desertification intensify competition and conflict over natural resources such as land and water, which often results in new conflict, in new dispute, particularly in areas where conflict management is weak and where certain groups, particularly women and indigenous community, face political exclusion. And let me mention another factor. Climate change also contributes to extreme food spikes and food insecurity, which in turn leads to protests, social unrest, and conflict around the world. So, in other words, if we don't tackle the climate change and if we don't protect our natural resources on land, underwater, and our biodiversity, we are going to increase conflict and tension. So we really need to join forces. We'll talk about more later. We have a window of opportunity now to really take action for climate. And this is the only way in which we can build inclusive and peaceful societies for now and for our future generation.
Marina, thank you for that. Kees, what is Live Kindly? And what's the impact you believe on the environment and wildlife if we stop eating meat?
Yeah, thank you, Richard. So we are called the Live Kindly Collective, and we have as a mission to make plant-based living the new norm. Basically, when you think about it from 2040 backwards, what we want the world to ask ourselves the question and say, what were we thinking and eating animals? And so we want to make sure is that with Live Kindly Collective is that we create the biggest transformation, and that is the protein transformation. When we think about climate change and inequality, there's three big transformations which is needed. The transport transformation, the energy transformation, but actually the bigger thing, what we can do all together with 7.7 billion people on this planet is the food transformation, the protein transformation from animal to plant-based. I used to work for Unilever, 27 years being part of a food industry, and I did that all around the world in all the continents, of which 8 years of the global executive team. I was blind about the impact of the current flaw and the current broken food system. 91% of the deforestation of the Amazon, the lungs of the world, is obviously done because of the current animal-based food system. The oceans, exactly the same thing. They are getting completely vacated, and there's no oxygen anymore in the two biggest lungs, the Amazon and the oceans. And again, that is because of the animal-based food system. We actually eat, as humans, we eat 70 billion animals every year. And so the whole idea is that this notion about to live kindly for humans, because actually there is a human health on eating plant-based, in the power of plants, for our home and for those who share it with us. So live kindly for humans, our home, which is our planet, and for those who share it with us are the animals. 96% of all human and mammals around the world is actually humans and lives livestock. Only 4% is what we would call, other animals on this planet. This is urgent. We really have the opportunity to actually make an impact, and each and every one can do that just by changing one meal a day into plant-based, and that in itself will actually help to transform the totality of the trend, which is about climate, which is the 1.5 degrees, and it is about inequality, and all that obviously led us up into peace. And that is ultimately how business as a force for good can actually help to create and be the powers of making sure is that actually we fight climate change and inequality together.
70 billion animals, does that include fish, Kees?
It does actually.
It does. Well, you know why I asked that, Fabien. As an aquanaut, tell us about what you've seen, because you're face-to-face with this reality in terms of what Kees is talking about. How are we doing and how are things changing when it comes to wildlife?
It's a great question, Richard. Essentially, we're talking about a largely underexplored, unexplored part of our planet. Let's take a step back and realize that the only thing that makes our planet unique is ocean. No ocean, no life, no healthy ocean, no healthy future. Now, I've been blessed with being able to go scuba diving since age 4 and being on expeditions routinely since age 7. First with my grandparents, then parents, and now with my own team. And in the last 10, 20, 30 years and beyond, I've seen an enormous change. I think the list of what hasn't changed is much shorter than what has. The problem is that we have, just like with climate change, a huge disconnect with the water portion of our ocean. And if you look at the 3.4 billion cubic kilometers of living space that it represents, that's really 99% of our world's living space, within which the vast majority of the biodiversity lives and thrives, and the stuff that we count on. Not to mention that we are, at this juncture, treating the oceans as an endless resource in a garbage can, just like we have in the past on land. And what was just mentioned is absolutely true. The biomass on this planet is, as far as representation of livestock and people versus wild animals, is hugely imbalanced. And so, if you look at what the biodiversity situation is in the ocean, We're less than 10% of our pelagic animals, the traveling animals like tuna, sharks, and so on, that we have overfished. And the problem is that now we're facing monumental challenges. Now, it's not all bad news, because in places where communities have decided to protect their aquatic backyard, if you give nature a break, it tends to come back. And we've seen practically miracles of nature when you give nature a break. Let's remember that the ocean is our natural resource bank account, and we can't afford to go broke. But the more we wait, the longer we take to act, to become net neutral or net negative on this planet as a species, the more we lose, or the more we don't have to give back to our future generations. At the end of the day, the planet doesn't care if one species is here or not. It's up to us to care and act so that we can live in symbiotic relationship with our life support system, so that we have a longevity as a species. And we need to take basic lessons from nature in order to survive for the long run. And that's evolution. We need to evolve. Diversification. We need to really diversify on all fronts. And we need to be able to adapt to the current situation.